Hello, Michelle. Hello, me. Hello, Chami.
Good
Hello,
morning. Good
Andrea.
morning.
Great. Yeah.
Hi. Good
Hi,
morning.
Andrea. Hi,
Morning.
Michelle.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Andrea,
Yes.
I canceled my other meeting, so I've got lots of time here. So there's no time constraint. So if you have a time constraint, let me know and I'll keep my first part short and then you can jump in and
Yeah,
then leave.
Mhm.
What time do
I
you have to
teach
leave?
at 9, so I have a 3-hour workshop that starts right after this. So I'm gonna probably have to jump off at about 1:45.
Okay, great. And
Oh,
so
that's
we're
nice.
probably ending with the Q&A. That last 15 minutes, I'll stick around for that part.
Great.
So Michelle and Andrea, yeah, so we'll have the Q&A from about 40 into the session, and then at 45, then the Q&A can be ended, or it could last until 50 if there are a lot of questions.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I have to say that today nearly 100 registered for the workshop. It has been a very excited atmosphere over here.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah.
That's great.
I mean, are we waiting for anyone else to start the session, or the session can be started soon?
Yeah, we can start on time right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I know that probably Ling will be into the session from KISS to kind of introduce everyone, right? Ling, are you here yet?
Yes. I think we can start now. Welcome businesses and supporting organizations to the event Canada Market Insight Training Workshop. The event is held at 10 p.m. in Vietnam. So we sincerely thank you for not minding the time to attend today's session. This is an activity carried out within the framework of the Vietnam-Canada Impact Exchange Forum on the import and export aspect. The project is supported by the Canadian Embassy in Vietnam and it's the corporate project and SME Traveling. The project is also held by Kid Startup and Spring Activator to promote impact exchange between the two countries, especially in 3 areas: export-import exchange, gender lens investing, and impact investment exchange. To better understand the activities of the forum, please refer to the link in the chat box that Mr. Tunkit will send to you. Mr. Tunkit, you can send the link in the chat box for everyone to can visit it. In today's program, we are honored to receive 3 distinguished guests. Ms. Michelle Nelson, founder of Fractal Solution Group, CEO and co-founder of Good to Grow, and Ms. Neil Thompson, CEO and co-founder of Layback Snack. Welcome to the event. Before the event starts, I would like to invite Ms. Chami, Managing Director Activator, to share a few words. Feel free to.
Well,
okay.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you everyone for having me here today. I'm so glad that I can see many businesses here, even though it's like 10 p.m. at night in Vietnam. So welcome to today's session. My name is Trami and I work with Spring Activator and we are based in Vancouver, Canada. We are a global organization that exists to change the world through innovation. We work with entrepreneurs, investors, and ecosystem partners to help innovative companies to launch, to grow, and raise capital and make the world a better place. So how do we do this? First, we provide business support for entrepreneurs. And this would be like acceleration programs, network building, connecting founders to partners, to fund, to talent, and to amazing guest speakers such as Andrea and Michelle, who are joining us here today. Another core piece of our work is training and connecting angel investors. Through our programs and Angel Network, we develop a rich database of investors across Canada, and so it allows us to connect companies to the right investors at the right time. We are a team of 40 people, and we have offices in Vancouver and Toronto, Canada. Our team right now is already spread across Canada, the US, and Southeast Asia. So we're delighted to partner with Key Startup to organize the Vietnam-Canada Impact Exchange Forum. To everyone here today, please introduce yourself too. We would love to know about your company, what is your company name, and the products that you hope to export to Canada. So please feel free to type in the chat box to share. While you are sharing about your company, I think I also can start our panel discussion. And then in a little bit, we can probably go through to see what kind of products that we have here today. So we can now start our panel discussion on exporting and distributing environmentally friendly processed agricultural products to Canada. During our discussion, please feel free to pop any questions that you might have into the chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. And so please allow me to introduce you to our Fractal Solutions Group and Andrea Gray-Grant, CEO and founder of Good to Grow. So thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle and Andrea. To start, welcome. Maybe I could ask maybe Andrea to first introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. My name is Andrea Gray-Grant. I'm the founder and the CEO of Good to Grow. I have been in the food and beverage industry, primarily organic and natural foods, for 30 years this year. So I'm feeling very old this year. But my experience runs from working for both Canadian and American manufacturers, as well as having started my own manufacturing company from the ground up, having had actually a business loss after 5 years of running my business, and then turned and started coaching people in the industry to basically avoid the pitfalls that I fell into. And to date, in the last 12 years, we've coached over 1,000 BC companies. So we've worked with lots and lots of people from every stage of business, from startup right through till growth. And we do one-on-one coaching. We do workshop series for varying stages that you're at in business. And we also host a number of events, including a trade show for local BC products called From the Ground Up, and a conference as well. And in addition, we do quite a bit of work with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food in BC to host events to help basically make connections for people that are selling products to market channels that might not be so easy to access. So we really try and offer folks not just the education, but also the connections to potential sales. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
That's wonderful, and thank you, Andrea, for sharing. Michelle, if you could jump in and also tell us a little bit more about yourself and your experience. I know that you wanted to share also about your previous experience with growing McMean.
Yes, actually, that's where I'd like to start before we go into where I'm at right now, because it has a lot of context to it. So my name is Michelle Nielsen. I have founded a company in Vancouver called Fractal Solutions Group, and we'll get to that in a moment. But almost 20 years ago, I was in the travel and tourism industry as a business development consultant. So my background is in business. I've been doing that as on a consulting basis for over 10 years. And in 9/11, when 9/11 happened, the tourism industry imploded. A lot of my clients went bankrupt or they downsized. So I was unemployed and I didn't know what to do. I was at a loss. And a friend of mine had a small business that he had been pilot testing with some deli meat products, and he was selling them to a few natural food stores in Vancouver. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing with this company that you've got on the side, his little side hustle? And he said, I can't do anything more with it. I have no money. I have no time. I have a job. I have to support my family. I've got kids. And I said to him, well, give me half the company and I will help you scale it up and we'll go national and we'll make it a big company. And he said, I can't pay you any money. I can't afford you. And I said, I don't care. Just give me half the company, give me equity, and I will do the work. So he gave me 49%. He retained 51, and we wrote a business plan, and I jumped in. And it was an industry I had no knowledge about. Unlike Andrea, who had all this experience, I was going in blind. And I didn't understand that in Canada, you had labeling regulations. I didn't know in Canada that you have to have some French on your label. And then if you're selling into Quebec, you have to have 50-50 French. I didn't know about different pack sizes and warehousing and distribution and importing. And we just jumped in. And you know that expression, you fake it till you make it. Well, that's what we did. We made some mistakes, just like Andrea talked about, you know, the pitfalls. And if I could turn back time and wave a magic wand, I definitely would do things differently in some ways and save myself some money and some stress. But we succeeded. And one of the biggest ingredients to that success is just the tenacity and the grit to just not give up. And we can't summarize it all, the secrets to success in a call like today, but you know, there are some things and advice that you can get from people like Andrea and her company that will help guide you along the way. And so fast forward, just this year, I sold my company. My partner and I sold the balance of our shares to a public trading company in Canada called Premium Brands. And I'm now semi-retired. I need still to work a little bit, and I'm still very passionate about the CPG or the packaged goods space, especially in the food industry. I've got a lot of knowledge to transfer, so I'm now coaching a little on the side with the organization in Calgary called Venture Park Labs. And what I did is I went back to school. I went to MIT University and I studied sustainability, because our company, McLean Meats, was a certified organic deli meat company. So we were doing something that was already sustainable. And there were elements of our company and our mission and our vision and our core values that were very sustainable. So I realized I need to learn more about this. What is this all about to be, you know, a future forward friendly product? And what are the certifications around that? And how do you weave that into your branding? So taking this course really helped me understand the framework that exists out there. And then I launched my company. So here we are today. I have Fractal Solutions Group, and I focus in 3 areas. One is in helping companies obtain some form of level of certification and develop sustainable development goals and then activate them. That's usually for an established company. The other thing I do is I help existing products become or transition to be more sustainable. And then number 3, and this is where I'm spending most of my time, and that is in coaching or mentoring entrepreneurs that are already at the proof of concept. Proof of concept, meaning they've already pilot tested in the market and it's a proven brand, it's a proven product, and now they're ready to scale it up, whether that means importing or going from one city to across Canada. And it's really exciting and I love what I do, but at the same time, I'm very lifestyle focused right now. I want to enjoy my life. I worked really hard for 20 years and now I'm spending more time playing and less time working. But I'm really blessed to have connected with Spring and met Tra, and I'm really blessed to have met Andrea and her company, Good to Grow, because she's doing some really cool things with her company. And the more I learn about her, the more I'm excited about what she can offer CPG entrepreneurs. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I love it that you are able to enjoy your life and have a better time now that you have worked and earned your share of, 20 years of hard work. So it's wonderful that you got to where you are. And it's wonderful to hear about your story. Thank you for sharing. I know that today many of the startups present here produce agricultural and food products. And you mentioned the term proof of concept. So they already have a product that is currently selling in Vietnam, in several other countries in the world. And I think it's very interesting that a lot of them are here today because they are thinking about exporting that product to Canada. I'm already looking at the chat box right now, and we do see, thank you, Anyan, for sharing. So we do see products ranging from, I'm seeing natural essential oils and cosmetics, I'm seeing hello, Lisa Huyen, and thanks for sharing. Exporter and producer of organic spices and essential oils. So things like cinnamon, star anise, ginger. That's wonderful. I'm seeing Palmyra, is that how I should pronounce it? Palmyra nectar, which is a natural sweetener from flower nectar. I'm also seeing, let's see, Fung here is sharing that they are a leading producer and trader of organic cinnamon, so star anise and other spices. I'm seeing Vu here, hello, and then he sells and produce coffee beans. So it's wonderful that we are seeing a very big range of different kinds of agricultural products and food products here. I would love for you to touch on maybe Andrea and Michelle, if you could share with us a little bit more about what are the first steps that they have to do when they're thinking about exporting to Canada? Would you say would be market research? Would you say determining who their first customers and distribution channels would be? Would love to just hear a bit about what you think.
Andrea, why don't you start with that one?
Okay, sure. So this is something that I teach all the time. If you're going to go into a market, you really need to understand that market. And that's everything from if that market's going to accept that product, if that market is accessible, how is it accessible? So when you look at a country like Canada, we're one of the largest landmass countries in the world. But our population is very spread out. So you really need to spend time thinking about distribution and where you're going to sort of start. There's, we have where I'm located, Michelle and I are located on the West Coast. And that tends to be a hotbed of natural food activity. All the trends kind of start here, but the population base is not here. We're not the biggest population base. The biggest population base is going to be in central Canada, in Ontario and Quebec. So it's a long way from Vancouver, where we're located, to Toronto. It's a very long way. So you need to think about that, is how are you going to cover that market? And so, so distribution tends to be a very important piece of this, but also, as I said, market acceptance and making sure that you do your market research. So the other thing that I teach is also pricing. So not just looking at, what's happening in Canada around trends and, growth and needs of this product, but what price am I going to be able to ask for this product? That's a very important thing, because it's not going to be the same in every country you go to. Or same country. In Canada, there's a very real change in pricing acceptability when you go from west to east, being that in the West, people will pay more for things. As you go across the country, it actually goes down. It doesn't go up. So it's a very unusual thing, but I'm sure it's not when you start looking at other countries and how they're laid out and how they accept products and pricing and whatnot. So I would say that that's probably the top thing, is to think about how is this landmass laid out? What's the best way to approach it? Will my product have acceptability? That means you have to do your market research, and what pricing is out there. So what is the competitor doing? What are they offering? How am I different than what's already out there? So that would be my advice. Mm-hmm. Michelle, I'll leave it to you to answer the rest.
Yeah, so I would add to that too, is that in your market research, you have to narrow it down to the minutia, right to the tiny specific market that you're going after, because just there's a million different essential oils in Canada. There's a ton of different coffee bean companies, and you really, if you're just going to put it on the shelf and expect people to just come running and buy that product, then you will fail on your feet. But if you know specifically that your product is going to do well in this specific niche market, and you know that niche market, and you appeal to that niche customer, then you have a better chance to succeed. And to compete with other products in the marketplace right now in Canada, if you're going mass market and you're just going on dollar and you just want to be cheap, then you're just going to compete on price. That's it. That's all. But if you've got something that's very niche and you want to go in the natural food industry or in the health category, then having a really strong brand is important, and a really strong brand that ties into some level of sustainability. So what is it that you are doing to make this world a better place? Do you have any sustainable development goals? Are you B Corp certified? Do you have anything within your branding and your mission, your vision, and your core values that ties into that? Because that's the relationship with the customer that is going to have more meaning and have more longevity. And that is the value proposition statement that you're going to make in that sales presentation with a buyer at a retailer level. They get people coming in all the time presenting another oil or another bean or another food product, and there's lots of them out there. So what is it you're going to captivate? How are you going to captivate them in that presentation with something that gives them a little bit more of a unique story? So those are my two things I would add to Andrea. And yes, I 100% agree with you on distribution. We started small. We did crawl, walk, run model, and we had our own truck, and we drove around, and we delivered all around to Vancouver. And then when we exhausted the sales there, then we got rid of the truck, and then we went to a distributor, and then the distributor went to the next province over to Alberta. And then we hit our ceiling, and we realized, okay, we are not going to grow as a company unless we really are ready to go to Eastern Canada. And that's where we had our biggest struggles, because to Andrea's point, the cost of distribution, you lose control because it's on the other side of our country. It's a 5-hour flight. It's 2 days to drive there. So you have to have your ducks in order. You have to have that business plan. You have to have trusted relationships with people to represent your brand on the East Coast. So yes, that's all I think I would say, or I'll just keep going forever.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Michelle, for sharing. I really love that, Michelle, you touch on a story. So who are you? What kind of value are you trying to, I guess, achieve with your products? And then by following your values, it's also a story that makes the difference for you when you go and pitch to potential partners, to potential buyers in Canada. So I love that you touched on that part. I also wanted to ask and follow up on one of Andrea's point about distribution channels. I would love it if either of you could help me expand a bit more about what are the considerations. So what are the possible, or what are the distribution channels that one should know when they're expanding to Canada, but also what are the considerations for a producer in order to choose between the different distribution channels? So maybe a difference in margins, a difference in the kind of story that they have to tell. So what would be the considerations to pick which one to start with?
Who do you want to? Michelle, do you want me to take this? Or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it. I'll
Okay,
jump in
okay.
if you like. But
Okay. Sure. So in Canada, there are several market channels that you can go into. They're not, the thing about the food industry in general, and I'm not sure if it's like this in Vietnam, but there's a lot of walls that you have to get over. It's not widgets. It's not like little, it's not nails that we're selling here. We're selling food. And so depending on the market channel you want to get into, or how deep you want to get into that market channel, your product needs to have certain certifications. So you can quite easily get into independent grocery stores or smaller specialty stores or natural food stores. That's not typically where there's an issue. Typically, the issue is when you want to go into those larger grocery stores, or you want to go into, let's say, a food service channel where it's maybe government supported or run, like the institutional food service sales channel. So these are volume. These are going to be representative of volume, but it's like there's a big wall there between you and that volume if you don't actually have certifications like HACCP, which I don't know what you have in Vietnam in terms of food safety certifications, but we have HACCP, SQF. There's a bunch of different things. We have CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. If your product is a product that is considered to be high risk, you have to, in order to be across the country, you would have to have that certification from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So you see there's a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of mountains to get over. in order to get larger distribution or kind of deeper distribution, if you will. So that can be quite a challenge to do that. Michelle, did you want to add to that?
Yes, actually, that's another, reminds me of another story. So when we were first launching our company in the first few years, we were using a small co-packer in Vancouver. It was a butcher shop, and he was only provincially licensed. He was not federal. It was a very tiny facility. And for us to sell across Canada with the meat industry, you have to be in a federal processing facility that is HACCP certified. And you have to be, a licensed CFIA processing facility. And so we were restricted in terms of how much we could sell because we could only sell within our own backyard, our own province of British Columbia. And the other thing too is, so when we finally found a co-packer that could make our products that was licensed, and then we went across Canada. But then on top of that, the other mountain was the margins and the distribution piece and the channels around which market we were going after. So we were going up until then, natural food stores, little mom and pop, independent. And then we moved into the big grocery chains, and that was different because the volume is bigger, your margins can be lower, they want more from you, they want listing fees, they want marketing dollars. And then we also did a little bit of food service, and we thought, oh, this is so easy, let's just sell into restaurants, it's going to be easy money. But own mountain to climb. And margins got even tighter, huge volume, but then even tighter margins for us, less work, but then lower margins. So your price point's going to be different for each channel that you go into, and each channel will have restrictions and its own price point. And but it's good to do your research and figure out where you should be, and maybe you have an opportunity to be in all of those markets and have a retail product. And maybe even a product that goes into Costco Canada. I mean, that's another whole channel as well that has huge volume potential. So again, it kind of loops back to the beginning of what Andrea was talking about in terms of just doing your market research, because it's really not about just bringing your product here and putting it on a shelf and sitting back and be like, okay, I'm going to be rich and sell my company and retire in a few years. There's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done in the beginning to find that special place on that shelf in the market.
Can I just bring up one point too that kind of surprised me when I started manufacturing that I wasn't aware of, and I feel like particularly for products that are coming into this country, it's probably an important thing to know. When we think about products that are considered high risk in Canada, so, meat, dairy, eggs, all the basics, nobody thinks about thermally processed products. And that's a really common thing to actually import into Canada, would be sauces, sweet sauces, jams, jellies, like all that kind of stuff, that people often kind of fall into that type of business. Oh, I know this sauce, it's a great recipe, I'll just make it, I'll hot fill it, and I'll just sell it all over the place. And actually it impacts that as well. So that's an important kind of thing to underline or to highlight, that also can be a real challenge. So it's always a shock to people that, maybe make products and sell it locally or into a farmer's market, and they have no idea that their jam or their little, their grandmother's or their mother's recipes that they're making and selling on the market actually are considered high risk because they're hot filled. So I think that's an important thing to highlight, because there's just so many people that make those kind of products, and they do need to understand that is also another kind of mountain to get over.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think now that you have touched on the different kinds, the different kinds of processing and how it might affect how the government might consider your product to be in what kind, and the different kinds of, processes that you have to go through in order to sell that product. I'd love to ask Ming, I know that you had a question that you said one of the producers of, was it coffee beans, were having problems with when they're trying to export to Canada. I think they were having difficulties with exporting a certain kind of coffee versus another kind. Would love to see if you would like to share the story, and see if Andrea and Michelle might have any advice or tips for the founder.
Yeah, thank you, Omni, for touching on this.
I think we have the representative over here. Tropical, are you there? In fact, they have already exported to Canada, but a very small amount, and then they have a kind of trader between to support them. But in the case they export kind of more products, they are meeting difficulties. Are you ready to share a little bit about Tropical and the difficulties you're facing?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for an amazing opportunity. I myself was born in Yalai, the Central Highland of Vietnam. I used to work in study abroad, where I host a lot of American students study abroad in Vietnam. But then COVID hit the business very hard. So I decided to leave Ho Chi Minh City and go back to my hometown. So currently I'm in charge of international sales at Tropical Coffee Factory. The company is new. It was founded in 2018, 5 years ago, also by a very young entrepreneur. As you may know, like Vietnamese coffee get a reputation of big quantity, low quality and cheap price. And the main products that we grow here is Robusta. We are the biggest Robusta producer in the world. But unfortunately, most of, the profit going to like big corporation, because they have a good sorting process. Farmers always get the less of the whole process. So one of our biggest problem when we try to talk to our customer abroad, one is we young, like the credit in the international market is, nothing compared to like the second thing is the reputation they already have. Doesn't matter how we try to explain or try to show them how good our coffee that we can produce, because we understand Robusta value is, not comparable to Arabica. Make high quality Robusta, but that take a long time for the customer get used to the flavor and then the habit of using Robusta in a replacement. As you may know, the global warming is getting, more and more serious. So Arabica getting less and less, especially in our country. So some of the problem we have is the certificate. It's hard to get to Canada. When you mentioned the wars, I could imagine that. Since we young, if people come to us with a big order, it's also hard because coffee is a seasonal kind of product, and the price also fluctuated. It's not like sustainable the whole time. So as a young and new entrepreneur in a province of Vietnam, what we're trying to make our name over there is like high quality Robusta, not the specialty, because it's hard. We're trying to make it better compared to low quality before, and the return is go directly to customer. What we have been doing is trying to train our farmers in a small community and equip them with machine so they can get a better sorting process, and then from that we get a better quality.
Yeah, but could you just mention, a little bit more briefly? Maybe it's too modest. In fact, Tropical has kind of a very good chain of food and of beverage over here in Ho Chi Minh City with 8 stores already. They expanded to US market and also called for investment over there. And now they try to expand to Canadian market, sorry. Currently there's one potential importer of the product, but then they are now facing the difficulty of really struggling with the procedures, and it took them really long time to do that. Yeah, so we would like to hear your advice on this.
To just get into Canada, do you mean? Sorry, you mean he's having problems getting into Canada, like just from a regulatory standpoint?
guess
with
so,
the
yeah.
regulations?
Can you explain more about this?
So currently, the partners that we have in the EU is mainly it's kind of like, they have the cafe shop, in the US, and they have about like 10 cafeteria. So we do FOB, so they take our products and they do whatever that the product can make it to the US. We don't know the whole process. And now it's turned into like they have people from Canada, like importer, wanna work with us, and then they send us a list of we need to do, and that take time. It's not happen in 1 or 2 weeks.
Right.
So what you mentioned is that before that we kind of like wasting our time and resources in market research. We don't know. We just like rumble around, and it took us a lot of like resources on that. So from you, I think it would be very helpful and benefit us if you can connect us with some resource, even like some website or forum where we can go there and learn, rather than just like search randomly on Google, or like paying like the third party for extra fee.
And Drew,
Uh,
are you thinking about learning? Sorry, I just wanted to maybe ask to see if you wanted to learn about, is that market research that you want to learn, like how best to do it without spending too much time? Or are you thinking about the best way to kind of get the right certifications to export into Canada? What kind of resources are you looking for?
I would say market research is the first thing. The certificate depends on the customer. It depends on the importer.
Okay, I'll give you my 2 cents. I've had, because we do a trade show every year, and we do a lot of coaching and teaching, I have seen so many coffee companies come to my workshops, and come to the show. I've coached folks in how to pitch a coffee company. I can tell you that what I'm not hearing in everything that you said is your story. There's just not a lot of story there. Trying to convince people that a coffee that they think isn't that high quality or isn't as high quality as another is like trying to push water uphill. I just don't think, with your bare hands, I just don't think it's a good strategy. I think the strategy needs to be, I can tell you in this market, there's always a story. It's really important to tell people why they should support. Coffee is not grown in Canada. Okay, it is not grown in Canada. It may be processed somewhat in Canada, but it's not grown there. And so what's really important is there's things like fair trade, which even people have questioned that. Is it really fair trade? Are the farmers really getting the money that they say they're getting? Because there's corruption a lot in the coffee business. There's a lot of corruption. And people know that. Consumers know that here. So there's certain things that they're going to be very interested in knowing about, do the farmers get the money? Is it are there fair practices? What is the story? Why did you care so much that you wanted to get into the coffee business in the first place? And you're young. And I think that's part of that story. If you're young, I think people are actually tired of seeing big companies and, old people that are running around doing business the way that it used to be done. I think it's a time for change, and it's a time for something different. And the best way to get people to understand that is through marketing, is through telling your story and why they should care about your product. I could, off the top of my head, there's tons of coffee companies in BC even, they all have a story, or they all have a purpose, and they're supporting certain things. So it's very important with coffee, because it is coffee, chocolate, these markets where just there's so many competitors. You need to try and differentiate yourself. And I wouldn't say if there's a bad kind of, focus on, no, that's not the word I'm looking for, but I'm trying not to use difficult words. But if you're if you're trying to go up against something that's a belief system that people think that one thing is worse than another thing, then can use that. Like go for the story and go for why it's important and talk about things like global warming and talk about why it's important to support this business. Right. So people will attach to something that they care about. They can get coffee from anywhere. It's very easy to get coffee. Right. And so what they will then do is, of course, is going to be a contingent of people that all they care about is the taste. And there's lots of people that, you know, believe me, they drink McDonald's coffee every day. And that, you know, and they think it's amazing coffee. And right. And to some people, coffee is coffee. And then the story can become incredibly important to them because they feel they're supporting something. They're getting their caffeine. That's fine. They don't care, you know, the quality of it. But they want to hear the story and they want to feel connected to what they're buying. Michelle, you're shaking your head, but I'm sure you could add to this too.
100%. I'm actually coaching a coffee company right now in Canada, and they're importing the beans and then they do their own roasting. But the certification, they have 4 certificate stamps on their package, and the owner is a woman, and she went to a distributor and she's doing really well. She's got market tests. She's ready to expand and scale up, and went to a distributor and said, "Can you distribute my product?" And they said no. And she was shocked because she ticked all the boxes. She's got a product, she got certification, she's got proven sales. And the distributor said, because there's too many coffee companies out there, and what everyone wants right now is organic coffee. And she had all of her, she's frog friendly and free trade, and she's woman owned. And I mean, really a nice line of certificates and a great story. And she's doing something sustainable and giving back to her community. You know, a certain percentage of her profits, she helps with food security and helping families get food in food banks. It's a beautiful story. And still they said no. And so I'm helping her put forward a stronger brand, stronger message, stronger story, and a stronger sustainability plan that is a little bit more scalable and not so focused in her community, but it's something that's Canada-wide. And because she doesn't want to go certified organic, because that takes her into a much higher price point, and she wants to stay within her niche market. She's very adamant about that. So that's great. She's got her passion, she knows her niche market. And I think she's going to find the right distributor at the right time, but she's been focusing more on strengthening her branding. So going back to Andrea and some of the points she was making, I recently did a coaching call with a young man who has a beverage company, beautiful brand, beautiful packaging. I mean, it looked so fancy. It was the Mercedes-Benz of bubbly water. And he was telling me about it, and I could just see right away he was going to fail, even though it's a beautiful package, because there was no substance, there was no story, there was no passion behind the brand. It was just a fancy product gel, but in the inside it lacked heart and soul. And as I was talking with him, I was asking him questions about his company, and he said the recipes for the tinctures that went into the beverage was from his grandmother in China, and his great-great-grandmother was an herbologist. And these are recipes that were passed down to the family. And suddenly I got, that's the story. How come you're not telling this? Your grandma and your great-grandmother would be so proud of you. They need to know that you're telling their. And so I think he's had that aha moment to realize that just because your product looks good and it tastes good and it might have a nice price point, it might not succeed because it's lacking heart and soul and story. And that is where the brand experience extends from your heart to the customer. When the buyer, they buy it, they bring it home, they have a relationship with your product, they have a relationship with your brand. And that is when the magic happens. That is when the brand loyalty happens. And that is when you succeed in the market.
And that's the direction the market's going.
It is.
That is really the direction. Like you're really missing out if you don't focus on the story, on the why. Why are you doing this in the first place? When that's missing, I have a very good friend right now who has a sizable business, and they were in my trade show, And I said, well, how did you do? Because I thought the products were great. I thought this is great. It's the perfect market. It's great. He says, your trade show is not for us. I said, why? And he said, we're not healthy enough. And I said, but you're making, it was a product that should be clean, but they were trying to get more shelf life and all these different things. And so it wasn't as clean as it could be. And I said, you're making a huge mistake. That is your market. You guys need to clean up. You need to be more authentic. You need to be offering people, when someone eats a product that's fresh, expect it to be fresh and not have anything in it other than what you would put in it if you made it at home. And so when you start, doing things for business and not putting the customer first and not putting what they want first, you're going to miss out. You're going to lose out. So it's important to really be authentic, tell your story, make something that's going to make the world better, not just tick a box. So I think this is going to be really important for you moving forward with your coffee business.
Thank you, Andrea and Michelle, for your blowing mind stories. We at the field, but we have no ideas what you guys experience every day and how you look at our products. Corruption, yeah, trade fair. There's some keyword that I and my team need to work together. And I really hope to connect with you through LinkedIn or other way, and maybe get support from you if you have time. And I think I should let other people interact with you because I don't want to my coffee story get too much time. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're
You're welcome.
I noticed that Neil Thompson is here too. Hi, Neil. Sorry, I
Yes,
didn't-
Anil is here. and I
Hello,
was
good morning,
going to
everyone.
say- Oh.
Thought I could sneak in there.
Welcome, Neil.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Andrea and Michelle. Neil, I'll go to you in just a little bit. And I love that we ended kind of the sharing session with Andrea and Michelle on story building, on brand building, because I think your story about laid back snacks will be just perfect to just follow up on this discussion. And Andrea, I know that you have to leave a bit earlier today, so please do feel free to drop off. I really don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. I also wanted to ask if the best way that any of the businesses here, if they had any questions, if they want to reach out to you or Michelle, where would be the best place that they could go to contact?
I'm going to put my my direct email in here
Thank you so much.
in the chat.
And meanwhile, please feel free to drop in any questions that you might have. I think we can spare probably 2 more minutes on the Q&A with Michelle and Andrea, and then after that, we'll move on to the next session. Thank you,
Yeah,
Andrea. I see your email now.
Yeah, great. Could just jump in because we have another spicy company. Vinasamik, are you there? 30 seconds for you and any questions that you're having.
Hi everyone. It's such my great pleasure to see you today. My name is Dina. I'm working for Vinasamik in the business department, and we have 15 years of producing organic spices and especially organic cinnamon. We're now exporting to 4 key markets, Europe, US, Korean, and Japan. And now we are targeting Canada market. We have top value certifications like international organics for the 4 main markets, and also for about food safety we have BRC, FDA, and UEBT Rainfall Alliance also, Fairful Light, and the next will be ESG. So we are very proud to be a social impact maker by complying over 3,000 upland farmer households. We improve their living standards and empowering women there. So thank you for your attention. My company also have some question for you. Actually, now we do exporting to Canadian market, but our volume is still small, and we want to enlarge the segment of Canada. We are now exporting organic cinnamon, the powder, and also sticks, and some other spices also like star anise and ginger. We want to enlarge the market side here. And I know that you are all operating in agriculture and spicy industry. So I want to ask, like, is there any way for us to collaborate, or you can introduce us some manufacturing companies in Canada that have demand for our products?
Are your products bulk for further processing, or are they retail, or both?
Both, but mainly processing, the raw materials.
Okay. Andrea, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to?
I think you better. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
you
to
have to duck out.
I've gotta get going. But thank you
Thank you so
all.
much,
And
Andrea.
yeah, I'm just, please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Have a great day.
You too.
First of all, I want to say I love the story. And you know, you're ticking a lot of boxes, and especially being organic. If your products are retail ready, then the first question would be, are they ready for Canada in terms of language and CFIA regulations? And then if so, then you could be talking right away with a natural food distributor. And there's a number of them that have distribution right across Canada. There's a company called Tree of Life. You could reach out to them. And that's the retail space. And so I would start with the natural food distributor like Tree of Life. But with regards to further processing, you've got to go through some of the big umbrella spice experts, the companies in Canada that do the blending for the further processors. And in Canada, there's like, there's only about 2 or 3 that are the big ones. And I can send you, there's Newlyweds, there's Cousins, there's Viberg, etc. There's a number of different companies that specialize in spice, and they would be the ones that would represent you, because it's very, very seldom that you have large manufacturers in Canada buying straight from the spice producer. It's too much to manage for them. They're doing high volume purchasing, and it has to go through all the certifications with regards to the food safety and the HACCP, not just the organic certifications. So you're better off to go through a middleman. And there's a really, because we're a small population country, there's only just a few players that specialize in the spice. So I can send a list of those companies to try after this call, and you could just reach out to them.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for the answer. And I think that that wraps up our Q&A for now. Ming, would that be all right, so that we can move on to the next session? Thank you. So Michelle, thanks so much for joining us. Please feel free to stay along for the next parts if you wanted to hear about Neil. And also, you probably already know Neil, so I know that you said hello. But we'll be touching on like a quick introduction about Neil, about laid back snacks, and then talking about consumer trends in Canada. Since just now you talked about distributors, I would love to also ask Neil for your experience working with distributors so far in order to get, I guess, supplies for your.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This has been wonderful. Yes. And I just one other quick question I just want to ask before I say goodbye. Out of everyone that's in the room right now, and all of the companies that you're either representing or own, are you also talking about wanting to move to Canada and be here physically, or are you wanting to just simply export and hire other people to represent your product here on your behalf? Or is it a mixed bag of both of those? Is that
to my observation, most of them first want to export the products to Canada, but then yeah, they are not limited to just one option. I think they'll try to reach out further. So yeah,
okay, that's good to know. All right, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. It was a pleasure meeting you, and we'll talk soon. I'll send you a follow-up email.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Neil, for joining me today. And I think to start, I would love a quick introduction about yourself and about your story of laid back snacks.
Sure. Thanks, Shra. That's very kind of you. It's great to see everyone, and it's great to be with you today. A couple of just context-based things that I'd love to start with. The first is just around timing. I also have till 9:30 Canadian time. I'm not sure what time it is in Vietnam, but I think given the time that we have together, we may talking at the screen. I get a sense that there are a bunch of different folks in the room with different businesses. Some are building brands, some are looking to export product to Canada, and I think we might be more targeted if we have a bit more time for Q&A. So let me just jump in with some context about Laid Back Snacks, and then we can go from there. So Laid Back Snacks is a nut-based, mostly nut-based, but healthy trail mix company. We have 31 different snacks that we sell online through our e-commerce business. Our whole angle is really to use whole ingredients in fun and delicious ways. I started the company back in 2014 with no experience in food. I realized that I had the diet of a 5-year-old. I wanted to eat more healthy food, but the issue was when I went to the grocery store, I didn't see any fun brands or any brands that were really doing a lot of fun e-commerce based business. So something that I really wanted to do. And just on a foundational level, food has always played such a big role in our life. I've worked in a couple of different industries in my career, and I find that the food industry kind of attracts a certain type of person who, not a lot of people work in food who don't feel passionate about food. And you know, that may or may not be true for you, but that's certainly been my experience over the last 9 years of working through the industry. And so I started the company, and I set up with a mindset that it was very much going to be an e-commerce based business. That's all we were going to do. And over time, I realized that there was demand for us in different channels. There's obviously the traditional grocery channel. We had 4- and 5-star hotels, for example, who were contacting us. I remember going into one of the Fairmonts in downtown Vancouver, super fancy hotel, 5 stars, and I looked at their minibar, and they had all of the stuff that you would buy in a gas convenience store. Snickers, a roll of Pringles. And so I said to them, come on, you know, guys, we've got to be a bit more sophisticated. The world is changing. We've got a younger consumer base coming through. They want to eat healthier food. Just Michelle and Angela were talking about, they want to know that story. They want to be able to connect to the brand on a personal level. And they want to know the people behind the company who are building it and selling them the goods. And so some interesting things happened through our development where we heard, or where we saw those niche opportunities in things like hotels. And over time, that's expanded into different food service areas, like sort of even prisons, hospitals, schools, universities, things like that. And then most recently in the retail channel, which before COVID-19, retail weren't looking to really sell snacks. And when I think of retail, we have some large sporting stores here. We have one called Sport Check. We have a large bookstore here called Indigo, and they were just focusing on their core business before COVID. And then they came out of the back of COVID-19, and we were, of course, all locked up at home, and they were thinking, how do we get people into our stores? And when people are in our stores, how do we sell more to them? And so they landed on what we know as sort of the impulse snacking section. And so in Canada, we've seen a bit of an explosion of that kind of dynamic happening in non-grocery stores, I'd call it. And so we found that niche, and we said, okay, well, this looks good. Let's focus on this, and let's direct our sales activities towards this channel. And so at the moment, we have 4 real areas that we focus on within Canada. One is e-commerce channel. The other is our grocery channel, which is traditional. We have a what we just call a B2B channel, which includes retail. It includes offices ordering snacks for staff, members, for customers, and people like that. And then we have a food service, which is probably set up the same in most countries. As we've gone through the market, speaking very frankly today, because I think there's more value in just being candid about where things are in Canada. The economy in Canada is pretty cool right now. I think it is in most parts of the world. Grocery channel, Michelle and Andrea were talking about it as well. Grocery is pretty saturated. I don't want to put anyone off from going into it, but my experience of being in grocery is it's pretty saturated. There are 5 or 6 different options for every single category on the shelf. They're all following the same wonderful coaching advice. They have great branding, they have good products, they have good stories. They do a lot of good marketing on social and some of the sort of more progressive channels than just your grocery marketing channels. And e-commerce at the moment, we've seen our business go down pretty dramatically since the end of COVID. And every time someone cancels an order or a subscription, we have a subscription-based snacking business. So every time someone cancels their subscription, we ask them for a reason. You know, why have you canceled your subscription? What can we do better? What can we do differently? And those emails come to me. So I see every single email every time someone cancels a subscription with us. And for the first time in 9 years, inevitably, almost every single reason is we just can't afford this right now. We're looking in our budget for places to save. We're looking everywhere we can. Love what you do. We'll come back, but we just don't have any money at the moment. So it is a competitive space in and of itself. And then I think at the moment, what we're experiencing is you layer in a cooling economic environment. And it is difficult. And what that's meant for us is that we've had to pivot and we've had to look at other channels like non-traditional retail and grow in some of the food service category. Stopped investing in as actively. We're just saying that for now, we accept that, you know, we're not going to keep trying to push the ball uphill. We're just going to wait these channels open up, things come back, consumers have. But there's been an awful lot of inflation. There's in the news almost every single day. Customers in Canada are talking about how expensive it is to buy things in grocery stores. And I think what that represents actually is an opportunity for ingredient suppliers who are trying to sell into manufacturers and brands in Canada. It is a very cost competitive environment right now. And if you've got a great product commodity that's at scale, and you can find a way to sell into producers and manufacturers and offer a great price and a great product, and then also make the front to back experience as easy as possible. You know, if someone contacts me and they say we will take care of all of the logistics involved in getting the product from us to you, we'll make it as simple as possible. And then, you know, as we go through it all, let's have conversations about who can pick up which areas of it and what's reasonable to expect. I think for a lot of manufacturers in Canada, they love the idea, and we've looked at it as well. We've got a wonderful wasabi product, and we also buy a lot of cashews, and we've thought, well, we would love to get to know some of the producers in Vietnam. We know that that's where a huge amount of the ingredients come from, and open up conversations. You know, it's a time thing. It's also the complexity of thinking, oh, wow, you know, what kind of gain can I really get? How big do the orders need to be? Is someone going to be proactive about saying, well, you won't order a full container worth of ingredient for just this product. So what we can do is we'll find someone else to share a container with you. You know, it's those kind of creative solutions that I think will set you ahead of other producers selling into Canada. And the cost disparity, I know we work with one company out here that also does a lot of production out in Vietnam, and I have a really good sense of how much it costs them to get their cashews ready for sale into Canada. And then of course I know what we pay from them by the time the cashews get to Canada. And they're doing very well, and they've got a huge margin in there. And so I think there's an opportunity there to disrupt the regular sort of entrenched supplier network that we have between the two countries, and come in with great competitive pricing, come in with creative solutions, come in with a lot of collaborative dialogue. And I know sometimes that can feel a little bit daunting. Sort of me coming in and having a conversation with a supplier from Vietnam, not speaking Vietnamese and hoping for collaborative dialogue is just kind of overwhelming for me. I think, well, where would I start? That's where your consulates come in. That's where Spring comes in. People who can help facilitate those kind of conversations. And I would say just being prepared to take your time and walk through the conversation slowly, deliberately, assuming best intent, building goodwill, and sort of slowly entering the marketplace. Yeah, I think that's probably a great place to pause. Shra, was there anything else that you'd like me to touch on in this session? Story-wise, brand-wise? I heard Michelle and Andrea talk a lot about brand, so I thought I'd the brand a bit, but I can jump in if that's helpful. Whatever's helpful for
That
folks.
has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Neil. I think I already see a question from VinasMX. I'll just maybe ask you just one question before maybe Ming can jump in to moderate the Q&A with the startups, because I know that you did talk about facilitating conversations. So I think a lot of the startups here, or a lot of the producers here, they are wondering, so where is the best place to start? Like, should they go and look for brands like yourself, or should they go to trade events? Should they try to connect with any kind of distributors? And who would you recommend? So how do they start that kind of conversation?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I mean, I think that I'm a big believer in what's the expression, measuring once and building twice. No, anyway, the importance of pre-planning and the importance of doing due diligence up front. And I think that the consulates in Canada and the consulates in Vietnam are a good place to start. Industry associations are a good place to start. And before we launch into any project, and I'm sure a bunch of you are doing this already, it's really just taking a little bit of extra time to make sure that you've got a really good sense of the market, really good sense of who's doing what within the market, and then finding one or two people who have really great access to the people that you want to talk to. And you know, spring comes to mind. I think of in BC, there's a business association here called BC Food and Beverage. If the Consulate of Canada is doing their job as well as we hope they're doing their job, then they'll have a list of people that go beyond just the industry association in every province. There's the Canadian Health Food Association. And then I think it's coming back to the due diligence, really just important before you put in an ask, taking the time to understand interests of the people that you're talking to. Like, what are they legitimately, generally interested in achieving? How can you help them achieve what they want to achieve? And does that align with what you want to, with where you're going, what you want to achieve? Because I've on a number of occasions thought, oh, this person is a great contact. Let's invest a ton of time and energy in the dialogue and let's start building a relationship. And then after a couple of weeks and months, I've realized, oh, actually, they want a completely different thing to what I want. And this isn't the... I think taking that time, my experience with speaking frankly is just distributors are not super easy to work with. They have, again, many them all and you know, we've had an experience with them where we've definitely felt like this distributor kind of has us on their list at the lower half of importance. You know, we're pretty low on their list of priorities, and it takes a lot of work to bump yourselves up. And you're also the top of the list. The people that they're prioritizing are huge companies that are going to do a ton of business with them, and all the entrenched and established North American companies. So I'm not a massive fan of thinking of distributors as too much more than just logistical partners. So people who will put your product in a truck and ship your product to where you asked them to send it. On the relationship piece, it feels that they're pretty shallow on the relationship capabilities. We work with a broker here who has excellent. If you're building a brand, they have excellent relationships with a lot of the like every single grocery buyer across the whole of Canada. And I'd be happy to share that with anyone and make an introduction to see if there's a potential alignment there. But I find those folks who focus specifically on the relationship piece, and that's their job. Their job is to build relations and have relationships with the people who you want to build your relationships with. That's their core business. I think a distributor's core business is putting stuff in trucks and sending it to where you ask them to send it. Skeptical disclaimer there, but I think that's what I'd focus on. And then I think just expecting a lot of your government. I mean, this is why we pay taxes. This is why we pay a lot in taxes as food companies, and expecting a lot from your government and saying, hey, I need help. I need to get into these countries. These are the goals. These are the ambitions. It's easy in this Zoom world, and I have to remind myself every day to get out from behind the screen and go and have a coffee with someone and meet someone and shake their hand and go and fly and say, no, have a Zoom meeting, come and lunch and let's talk this through and see what we can find. So I think that makes a big difference. And I think the nice thing about government, and I don't know how many government folks we have on the call here, but the government in Canada understand that, you know, we're here to support the companies. Our mandate is grow the economy. Our mandate is create jobs and see success for Canadian people, see success for Vietnamese people. And we need to hold them accountable to that. And we need to say, hey, you know, we need help. And I've reached out to folks in California, for example, was so happy to hear from me. They were like, man, you know, you don't need to ask us to step up and help you. We're so happy to help you because we don't have enough people asking us to help. The Canadian embassy around the world has just been wonderful. Having said that, when it comes to the specifics of what your ask is and the technical nature of what you're asking them, I think it's important to not make assumptions. And again, in my experience, make assumptions that you can go in and we can just speak our food language and they'll be like, oh yeah, I understand this perfectly. I understand your requirements and everything's great. It's been important in my experience to say, okay, these folks are helping all sorts of industries in all sorts of different verticals. And it's beholden on me to take my time to articulate, help them learn as much as possible about my business, articulate my needs, establish the requirements, and then taking the time to work closely with them. Because I think often when it comes to sales, we might say, okay, we'll give it a week or two and we'll see if we get some sort of traction, and then we give up and we go, okay, that door's closed on us. I didn't hear back from them for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, I don't know that person hasn't just had a kid sick at home with COVID for 2 weeks, and they haven't been able to get to their work, and that's why they haven't responded. And you know, there are all sorts of mitigating factors going on. So it's challenging any of those narratives. I'm a firm believer in a negotiation doesn't start until someone says no. And so, you know, don't be afraid to hear no, and ask for what you need, and say, you know, this is what I need from you. And if they say no, say, okay, well, that's fine. What can you do for me? And then getting to those relationships, getting to those discussion points fairly quickly, so that, you know, your move into your expansion into Canada doesn't become something that takes 2 years to do. It becomes something that takes 6 months to do, because you've set up the infrastructure that you need and you're having the right kind of structured conversations.
Thank you so much, Neil. I feel like, just as you mentioned COVID and everything, it's like after a while you don't remember the last time that you talked to a person or the last time you invite a person to coffee. It's like, I forgot how much, whenever I ask you for one piece of wisdom, I feel like I received 10, which is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm
Thank
so
you. That's
glad that we
very
have
kind.
you here today.
Thank you. That's awesome.
So I know that you did stress, and I do think that it's a great idea to like start the Q&A a bit sooner. I do have a lot of questions myself. So if no one jumps in to ask questions, I'll jump in with my questions. But Ming, let's see if we have any questions from the audience.
In fact, yeah, thank you so much, Neil. You're very, yeah. I think very helpful advice on the different e-commerce, grocery, and B2B approach. Over here, we have some products called the coconut flour soil-free aminos, something like that, and it's solving climate change problems here in Vietnam as well. So, is there any, advice on the approach to the market? Yeah, besides talking to the agency from the embassy or whoever, but then from market side of the thing, any advice from your side? or products?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, man. It's completely top of mind for everyone in Canada at the moment, and I go off. The climate change piece is huge, and in our day to day, we have people who will say, "I won't buy any products from you that contain palm oil," and on a more extreme level, they'll say, "I won't buy any products from you because one of your products contains palm oil." And you're like, whoa, there's some very, socially, environmentally conscious folks out there. And people definitely want to vote with their conscience and their social value system. I think that, I've been to a couple of the large grocery retail forums and retail conferences, and there's a national chain in Canada called Sobeys. And I went to hear them speak, and interestingly, I've seen them over the last couple of years. For the first time ever, they had someone from their internal environmental climate change division stand up and talk. And she was very specific, and she said, we are approaching a time where by 2030, every single product that we carry in our stores, we want to know the state of their climate responsibility. And so as a brand, we've worked really hard to become a B Corporation. We're climate neutral, which means we're carbon neutral. And we've built these things. So I contacted her straight away and I said, hey, that's music to my ears. I love that. That's the positioning that we have as well. And she said, it's fantastic to hear. And at the same time, it seems like it's taking so long for a lot of Canadian companies to kind of get up to speed with the climate implications of their production systems and their operations. And that might be an opportunity where, while these Canadian companies go, I'm ready, it'll be an opportunity for other companies to come in, your companies to come in and say, hey, this is, we recognize the significance of this. And, whether it's a grocery chain that's looking to buy bulk product that they can sell in a bulk capacity, whether it's a manufacturer who's co-packing for that large grocery chain, and the grocery chain has said to them, hey, we need to start having some climate accountability in our supply chain. There's an advocacy piece there as well. And I think it's also such a great example for Vietnamese companies to set the bar and say, hey, we're doing these amazing things in Vietnam. And we do have this climate accountability that's fundamentally built into all of our operations. And you're not going to say this, but the kind of implication is, we need you to you can step up, you can work with us, and you can actually step up and do better, because talk is cheap. And we need to take more action. So I think we're in this state in the food system in Canada where there's intention, very solid intention around climate. There's not a lot of action. And at some point we'll reach that tipping point where, hopefully it's not 2028 before Sobeys starts really beating companies over the head and saying, where are your climate accreditations? Where are your climate accreditations? Hopefully we get there way sooner. But yeah, what you mentioned, man, is definitely part of the solution to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. Another potential solution that can be imported to Canada market is the kind of, clean energy solutions for producers like you or many other snack company or currently we are having a startup in Sand Battery where they are providing the drying solutions for producers to save the energy and also to create kind of net zero or something like that. So any chances of producers to adopt those solutions from a foreign company like Vietnam?
Yeah, as compelling as the climate narrative is, I think that for a company like that coming into Canada, the fundamentals of the conversation with any producer are, I can save you money, I can save you time. Those two things are often connected, or I can increase your revenue. And I think that's what you want to lead with in your messaging. I can save you time, I can save you money, I can increase your revenue. So when it comes to the sort of energy landscape in Canada, British Columbia, we're almost 100% clean energy. It's something like 78% of the Canadian electricity grid, power grid, is clean. I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta are the dirtiest provinces, or in most need of clean solutions. And you know, I think that's it's a differentiator when you've got the climate story and you've got the avoided deforestation story and you've got the lack of palm oil stories and all those compelling stories. Those are the stories that get someone to choose you when you're on a short list of 2 or 3 different options. But in order to get onto the short list of options, at the moment in Canada, you need to offer a lower cost, increase revenue, or saving time.
Yeah, very clear message, value proposition, right? And yeah, I think we have some questions from here. Also, are you looking forward to cooperate with spicy company in your snack production?
Yeah.
There is some question over here.
I can absolutely connect whoever asked the question with our manufacturers. So the way that our business is set up is we're really a brand. We're not trying to build out the production element at the back end, but we do have 3 production companies that we work with, who we go through the product development cycles with. They determine the products for us, or we determine the products with them, and finalize things, get them ready for market, and then we move to production. And just for example, we have a product that we're bringing out in Q1 next year called Blossom Honey Habanero. And the production company that is making the product for us said, oh, hey, we don't actually have, is it okay if we use cayenne instead of habanero? Because we don't actually have habanero. And I said, no, that's not okay, because it's habanero. It has to be habanero. So they said, okay, we'll go out there and we'll source it and we'll find it out. And, they've got different spice suppliers and things like that. So I think that might sort of build out into a strategy around direct business versus working with some of the spice suppliers who are already in Canada. And if I had a good sales team, I would definitely adopt both approaches. I can't remember the name of the company that they used. I mean, I could find it out, but they immediately said, oh yeah, we'll do that. And actually I was at a show in Toronto in September, and I had a spice company come up to us and say, is there anything that you need? I could dig out that information as well. So yeah, it's really figuring out your distribution model. Are you going to go direct, or are you going to work through a third-party company already located in Canada?
Yeah, great, Neil. This one, we're just curious about your business model. Over here, we have a coffee company who is now building the brand and expanding to different markets. So the business model that you're adopting is quite innovative in a way that you won't possess any production lines and stuff. But
Yeah.
is there any challenges in developing business model like that? They are already expand to American market, US market based on that model, but what about Canadian market?
I don't think there are many. I mean, the biggest challenge is just not owning your all elements of production that go into your product. So you're not getting as much margin as you could. As a result of that, we've definitely positioned ourselves in the market as a premium product, because we have to price ourselves fairly high to get the margin that we need. I'm also building this company not because it's something that I want to do. I'm 45 right now. I don't need to be selling snacks at 50. At some point, I will hopefully be able to sell this company to someone who does have those back-end production capabilities. and they will immediately capture all of the margin that exists for them, and they'll have a wonderful, hugely profitable business to work with. So yeah, I think the challenge is that the infrastructure is set up for people to do that. And again, coming back to the 3 producers that we work with, I was on a call with one of them yesterday. They're wonderful people. They understand my business completely. And I'm very open with them, and I say, hey, I'm just building a brand. That's what I do. I'm not trying to invest in insanely production machinery, expensive machinery, and all the rest of it. And I think it's also just so hard to do that in 2023, in that there are a lot of entrenched producers in Canada who have been building companies for 30, 35, 40 years, and they were some of the first to market. And the cost of competition was way less back then. They had their own set of problems because no one had an iPhone to work with, but competition was way less back then. And there was more opportunity to scale. I think of one of the suppliers we work with in British Columbia who grows cashews in Vietnam, and he was the first company to sell Vietnamese cashews into Canada and into North America. And because that's where they grow natively, he had the lowest price in the market. And he literally, back in the 70s and 80s, just sold to everyone and has built a very successful, very huge company. And I just don't think those opportunities exist really anymore, unless someone has many, many bags of money that they can spend on building up that kind of infrastructure and then out-competing the competition. And in this inflationary environment right now, when Canadian consumers are really feeling the pain of the cost of living, that looks like having lower prices than anyone else, and offering more promotions. And not a lot of companies can do that at the moment.
Thank you so
Not my
much, Neil,
company.
for your time.
Okay.
Maybe in the future, opportunity.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, I think you have to drop off, so we really don't stress on your time. But thank
Okay.
you so much, Neil, for joining us today. I'll
Okay,
follow
you're
up
welcome, Sean.
tomorrow, maybe with some of the questions that
Okay.
maybe if anyone is left hanging, if there are more questions coming up later,
Yeah.
I'll follow up with you tomorrow. But thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Sean. And if there are any, I'm also happy if there's anything that looks like a working group and there's a specific brief that can be sent to me that says, hey, Neil, we'd love 20 or 30 minutes of your time. This is the brief. This is what we want to talk through. And I can go off and do some research and see what I can find or something like that. Then I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to make myself available. I haven't expanded into a international market with laid back snacks. I tried in the United States and it was horrible and expensive. It is not an easy thing to do. So I admire all of you. I admire the ambition and the work that you're putting into to bring your products to Canada and move your business to Canada. So, if there's a small way that I can assist with things, then I'm happy to do that. And good luck. Very best of luck to all of you. I hope you all make it. I hope to see your products or interact with you in some capacity. If there's anyone on the call who, at some point, I am definitely going to want to start buying container loads of food from Vietnam. And so that's my ask to you. Let me leave that with that ask. If there's anyone on this call who knows the best person to talk to in Vietnam in order to get things like cashews, wasabi peas, green peas, roasted green peas, I would like to have that conversation with them. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Neil.
Take care.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Have a great day. Just following up on what Neil just said. So I know that I saw Quốc Tài here, and then he does cashew. And then for any one of you who is producing any of the ingredients that Neil just mentioned, feel free to leave a message with Ming at Key Startup, and then we'll be sure to compile all of your information, your products, and then I'll send it to Neil in the follow-up email, and then connect you with Neil if the products that you are currently producing is something that he is already looking for. So do feel free to drop that email, and then I'll compile everything. Ming, I'll leave it to you to grab up the
Okay.
session.
Okay,
Yes.
so there is not much time left for today's event, and all the members of the organizing committee are very grateful for the presence of the three guests as well as you today. We believe that the activities like this are necessary, and the General Forum looks forward to receiving your attention. Especially in November, Kistalab and Spring Activator will continue to have impact exchange and connection activities at the forum. You can see all the information through our website in the chat box that Tunkit will send to you. And if you have any questions for the speakers, we look forward to receiving them via the email right below. Before leaving, please spend a few seconds to scan this QR code to join our community. I will show it here. Once again, we appreciate for your appreciation today. Thank you for joining with us. Thank you, Chami.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Chami, for
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, it's late, very late now. So we're having Zalo group. Kindly send us emails and also join the group so that you can be updated with our activities and the upcoming opportunities that Chami will bring us to Canada. Okay.
Thank you so much and have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.